Kanye was on the Joe Rogan podcast. And I think, as we all expected, it was not much of a conversation. It was more Kanye yelling what a genius he is at Joe Rogan. So here's the same communist that I was quoting earlier. His opinion on Kanye West.
First thing they say is racism. They say, well, what makes George Bush any more racist than Trump?
They're both racist. It's degrees.
My friend asked me. My response is, well, racism isn't the deal breaker for me. If that was
Oh, what a clown.
That's some rich nigga shit there, though.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
That's some rich nigga talk. Yeah.
It really is. That's black
First thing
bourgeois
they
as
say is
hell,
racism.
dude.
They say, well, what
Listen how
makes
disconnected
George
this
Bush
is.
More.
Of course, this is him responding to when Charlemagne asked him about how he said one of his more famous political quotes before he became this kind of crazy pro-Trumper was when he said, George Bush doesn't care about black people. And this is him responding to, well, you said George Bush was racist. How do you support someone like Trump?
Any more racist than Trump? Is a question my friend asked me.
Has to reframe it first.
My response is, well, racism isn't the deal breaker for me. If that was the case, I wouldn't live in America.
That's some rich nigga shit there, though.
That is so disconnected.
That's some rich nigga talk. Yeah.
Good for you, Charlemagne. Completely correct. I think the Joe Rogan podcast is funny and entertaining, and Joe Rogan was inspired by my gods, Opie and Anthony, to start the podcast, to just come in with no prep, and basically whatever comes up. Basically to take away all the radio conventions of having it really pre-planned, having a really strict schedule of when the host talks and what questions you have to get to, and in and out breaks, to have it as more of a laid-back, natural conversation. And of course, because Joe Rogan has huge celebrities on, that's generally how people want to see celebrities. People don't want to see celebrities within the same 5 or 6 late-night interviews, playing improv games with Jimmy Kimmel and James Corbin. They'd rather listen to Kanye say, well, racism's not a deal breaker for me. With that in mind, I'm going to actually follow when I lost faith in the Joe Rogan podcast, because early on in coronavirus 19, Joe Rogan was one of the early sources that took coronavirus very seriously and had this gentleman on, Michael Osterholm. So here, let's listen to just a minute or two of this.
For lack of a better term.
So again, this is March 10th. So this is before the NBA closed down. This is before I lost all my work. This is before the end of the world basically happened. This clip was kind of sounding the alarm bell on how serious this could be.
Detective. I've spent my whole career tracking infectious diseases down, trying to stop them, trying to understand where they come from so we can make sure they don't happen in the first place, but most of all, trying to respond to situations just like this.
Just like this. And
Understand. What we saw in China,
Okay.
I'm convinced, as are many of my colleagues, as soon as they release all of these social distances, these mandated stay-in-homes, haven't left their home in weeks and weeks kind of thing, when they go back to work, they're on planes, trains, subways, buses, crowded spaces, manufacturing plants. Even China is going to come
They're
back.
really stuck in together, yes.
And so this really is acting like an influenza virus, something that transmits very, very easily through the air. We now have data
Terrifying.
to show that you're infectious
Airborne
before
toxic
you get
event.
sick. And in some cases, quite highly infectious. Just breathing is all that you need to do. So from this perspective, I can understand why people would say, well, wait a minute, flu kills a lot more itself every year than this does. And I remind people this is just the beginning. Probably the best guess.
It's sad that these scientists have to reply to these culture war nonsense arguments.
It's going to be at least 10 to 15 times worse than the worst seasonal flu year we see.
Jesus, he's right.
fatalities?
Yeah. And just illness. In fact, I brought some numbers. We conservatively estimate that
Man brought his receipts.
require 48 million hospitalizations, 96 million cases actually.
How many deaths?
Occurring.
Because we're past a million.
480,000 deaths. that
Yep,
can
we're way
occur over
past
4 to
that.
7 months.
Way
This
past that now.
situation. So this is not one that to take lightly. And I think that's what I can understand if you say there's only been 10 deaths or 20 deaths or 50 deaths. Just remember, 2 weeks ago, we were talking about almost no cases in the United States. And now that we're testing for it and watching the spread as it's unfolding, those numbers are going up after.
That's another thing, is that our testing program was so limited. I went to the hospital one time having relatively flu-like symptoms. It turns out I didn't have it. I found out later. But I didn't get a test when I was at the hospital because they had run out. I don't think this is such an unusual thing that they just They didn't. They weren't interested. The federal government and our healthcare system was not interested in mass testing programs. So we didn't get it. So we never found out how serious it was. So we have these little pop-ups that now happen. We're kind of playing catch up whenever it's happening.
And she works at a hospital there, and she texted this to this employee of ours last night. And this was an email that came out yesterday from one of their physicians in Milan at the largest hospital there. And he said, I
What'd he
just got
say?
a very disturbing message from a cardiologist at one of the Milan's largest hospitals. They're
So this is in
deciding
Italy.
who they have to let die. They aren't screening the staff anymore because they need all hands on deck. And there are very
Jesus.
small areas of the hospital dedicated to
They're not
non-COVID.
screening people anymore. So that's how bad it got in Italy. Holy shit. And that's how bad it's going to. I mean, you're hearing about places in North Dakota where there's whole counties and swaths of the state where they have 0 hospital beds. So this is back in March, these gentlemen were warning about it, and yet we have learned nothing, and we're going back into a third wave. Really, it's still the first wave. If you look at... If you look at the actual chart, it never really went down. Here's what we call the first wave. Here was what we call the second wave. But we never went back down to 0. We never reached 0. So really, this is all part of the first wave. So sorry, one more minute of this.
Where they still screen doctors. Everybody else is dedicated to COVID patients, so even if they're positive,
Hospital shut
they're
down
sick,
otherwise.
they don't. But they don't have a severe cough or fever, then they have to work.
Fuck.
He says
So this is how serious Joe Rogan was taking this on March 10th. How serious was he taking it? June. This is after the lockdowns. This is after, already tens, if not hundreds of thousands of Americans had died. He has Bill Burr on.
Experience.
Socrates and Aristotle here.
Over it. She kicked it. She
I'm
had it for a
surprised
while.
more comics didn't get it the way we're shaking hands and meeting people after
King
shows.
Bill Burr. That'd be great. Oh, William Frederick Burr.
I got
Dude,
my wife had the kids
Come on,
the other
dude.
day, so
Put your
it's
mask on, dude. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Big
As-
Jay Okerson got it. He had it. And he's clean.
It feels weird to be talking about people that have it.
Yeah. I know a lot of people that got it. I know about 9.
You're like naming names like Joe. McCarthy.
Naming names. God, Bill Burr finds a way to make
I like
everything
people
funny.
mad
Holy
now
shit.
'cause they have the antibodies. They think they can like walk on fire.
The
It's like, dude,
antibodies?
This is a brand new thing. I don't know
Come
if
on,
you wanna be
dude.
Testing.
Put your coat up.
You know, I got a buddy
you
of mine,
doing?
ended up getting it, and then he was just like, "Well, I got tested. I got the antibodies." So now I think he feels like he's bulletproof. So,
They don't
That's-
even know if you can catch it again. They really have no idea.
Bolsonaro.
well, people are gonna find out.
Jair Bolsonaro, the president of Brazil, has multiple times caught coronavirus, and he looks horrible. Oh, look at this. Jesus, this bombast. He's like the modern Idi Amin. Brazil's President Bolsonaro removes mask despite positive COVID-19 test. What a nut job. So this guy was part of the military fascist government in Brazil. He literally, worked within the military dictatorship. And the person who was supposed to run against him was jailed under political circumstances and immediately had their appeal denied so that they couldn't run for president. And immediately this guy who was polling at 30% becomes the only real candidate for president. I'm fine. Look at him whip his mask off. It was positive. I just breathed Shiva, the god of death, breathing on the Shiva, the god of death, the Brazilian president. All right, so let's listen to how Joe Rogan's opinion on coronavirus changed between March to June. January, February, March, April. So this is a couple months after.
Yeah, we're going to find out.
Yeah, because when I was driving over here, I actually got into a moderate level of traffic on the highway. Like I've noticed, it's just at some point. I mean, considering people are just kind of doing what they want to do, and a lot of people were.
He's right.
After 2 weeks, everyone just sort of, depending on where your ego was.
Completely right.
Fucking tell me this is all fucking something. I'm gonna go outside. Those people, they just kept it going. So now I just feel like, well, you can't have 60% of the population go broke because less than 1% has something.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It's a balancing act. He's right.
Just go back. I think we're just gonna go back, and if you get it, you get it. And if
God,
you
that's what
die,
Mark
you die.
Meadows,
If you don't, you don't.
Jesus, the prophet Bill Burr. Sorry to be cutting away so much. See, this came out 40 minutes ago. White House Chief of Staff, we are not going to contain the pandemic. Oh my God. Joe Biden is stunned after White House admits it's not going to. It's like they're just throwing in the towel. What a bunch of fucking weaklings. Jesus God, can you imagine if, it's tough to even think of an anecdote to demonstrate how crazy it is. It's like if FDR had said, those Nazis are horrible, but maybe we should just let them rule Europe. Holy shit. Bill Burr was right. They just give up.
Slow it down or stop it or something like
Here's
that.
what slows it down.
So then it's just
Fucking immune
death.
system. They don't tell you a goddamn thing about that. They don't tell you how to take care of your immune system. There's no.
This is a horrible take. This whole thing where if your immune system is good, what about pre-existing conditions? And also, a perfectly healthy person like Joe Rogan is still in an age bracket where you could die. Young people who are healthy could die. And plus, we don't know the long-term effects of this. I have someone who's related to me who got it months ago and still can't smell or taste. We don't know the long-term effects of it. So when Joe's like, just eat your fucking vitamins. Dumb guy
Put a
take.
mask on. Wash your hands. No one's
You
telling you
should.
to sleep more, drink water, take vitamins. There's none of that.
Yeah, and I know this one guy who brought up vitamin D on his big podcast, and then you couldn't find it anymore. Oprah, when she attacked the meat industry.
He is like Oprah.
I just saw a clip. Oh, this
Dummies
guy
all
Rogan.
just
I watched
agreeing,
the research
dude.
what who the guy was. It was just like,
It was
take
a
vitamin
woman.
D.
It was
A
a
woman.
woman.
That's
Yeah.
how much I pay attention. And then I
King.
It's all
Hey,
gone.
dude.
And there was some of this bootleg vitamin D. It was like vitamin D plus. I'm like, what is that? What is that? I know that probably is gonna make me catch it. So I just take vitamin C and I try to get 8 hours sleep. And I've been doing a pretty good job of. I'm pretty antisocial, like a lot of comics. So I haven't.
Yeah,
had
you
a
staying
problem.
in. You have to.
Keeping
Sort of.
away from everybody.
It's
Yeah,
not a
I
choice
do.
at this
I
point.
quarantine in my house. Like my wife's like, you guys gonna sit down and have dinner with us? I'm always over in the corner. If I'm alone, no one can hurt me. Just leftover childhood shit. Just coming from a family of loners. So.
Do you feel weird not doing stand-up? What has that been like?
I did not miss it at all. And, but I
Wow.
think
He
that
hasn't.
whenever there's
To be
something-
fair, he has an awful audience. Me and my buddy, actually Harvey, who is the guy who has gotten me through all my. If you watch any of my previous WoW streams, he's the guy who pretty much is my Merlin, who guides me on my journey through WoW. He and I went to go see Bill Burr when he was local, and my God, he has just the worst fucking audience of drunk idiots. So I get why he doesn't necessarily miss them. It's like Dave. It's like Dave Attell when he started doing Insomniac. It's like his just audience turned ugly on him. It happens to these comics where these guys are so funny and so edgy, they get the most despicable group of people to love them.
I did not miss it at all.
Really?
But I think that whenever there's something like painful in my life, I think that that's what I do. Is I just go, I don't care. I don't give a fuck. It's all. I really learned a lot more about myself during this quiet time.
It's
of not
actually
running
very
around
healthy
and
of you,
going to
Bill.
airports and kind of sitting with
He's a
myself
great podcast.
and
Please
being
listen
like,
to
wow,
it.
I thought I was way further down the road working on myself than I was, but I have a lot of fucking childhood issues left over. I was like, what? Like,
that
I
crazy?
really
Lot of
started,
introspection
all
when you're
these
alone.
puzzle
I get it.
pieces Just started coming.
I get it.
in,
I've been there.
and I was able to look all the way back where I was to where I am now and how I got here, and these little fucking things that happened to me. You know, good things and bad that just sort of just knocked me down this road that I'm on. It was
Just
pretty.
sitting alone
Fate.
with alone time.
Yeah, well, you know, my wife was going through, the third trimester. You know when they're just over it, and you're like, oh,
That's
God,
right. He
6
just had a
weeks to go.
little baby Burr,
I'm ready to have it now. He's like, oh no.
a little beautiful mixed baby.
I finally, get my
Red
daughter
hair,
to
black
bed, get her out of
child.
bed. Everything was good. Made sure all the doors were locked, and then I was just sort of like, why? All these years of doing stand-up, I'm just up at that hour.
Right.
So I was just sort of, sitting kind of by myself. Like
I'm worried about a second wave of the corona. I'm worried about them locking things down. Someone's got to step in.
Locking things down is what you're afraid of, not the
Next wave.
death.
You guys got to be proactive. You got to do something about people's immune systems. You got to lock down old people and sick people.
I don't think this whole thing where Joe Rogan is saying lock down old and sick people, the exact same people who listen to Joe Rogan and wear those "Don't Tread on Me" stickers, who are whining about their freedoms being infringed by lockdowns and by businesses going under. Are you seriously saying we should start locking up people who are perceiving as sick or more at risk? That's your answer to save freedoms, is to start locking up people with no cause? People say shit like this so fucking stupidly. It's like, did you work through what he just said? Does anybody say, well, this is what I think, and then what? No one ever says the then what. It's always, dude, wouldn't it be good if we just fucking locked up all the old people so I could go out and get my fucking pot like Joe Rogan?
Regular people do whatever the fuck they want. You can't just
People die if they do that, Joe.
for something that killed a
Freedom.
small fraction of
Freedom.
what it was gonna kill.
Freedom to kill your neighbors.
It's just fucking creepy to have guys like Mayor Garcetti be in charge of telling people whether or not they get.
That's what happens when you don't have a federal
That's not
response,
what
my
a governor
friend.
is supposed to be. That's not
They're
what a mayor's
trying.
supposed to be.
They're trying to look out for your best interests and trying to.
Thank you, Bill.
400 million people
The intent
all
is
pull in
correct.
the same direction. It's fucking. You can't get 40 comics to pull in the same direction. So
They
like
did.
they have like an impossible. They did and they didn't. There was people fucking right the whole fucking time. There's been fucking assholes on my street.
Correct.
Walking around no mask.
Correct.
You know,
I've seen them.
nuts, Quarantining like
Here
the
in
people that
crazy
come by
fucking
the
Florida.
houses, you see the
Same
fucking,
shit.
You know, the same
And
people
people want to
that go in and out of
protest
the
it.
house
They
and
want to
not
go out and be
fucking
aggressive
police
about their
them.
anti-mask
You
shit.
want people to walk down the street with a mask on?
Yes,
Let's not start this, Joe.
Do you though?
Let's not start this.
of course.
Okay.
Let's start it.
I don't want to start this bullshit. I'm not going to sit here with no medical degree, listening to you with no medical degree. With
God,
the
I
naked
love
flag
Bill.
behind you,
I
smoking a
fucking
cigar,
love Bill Burr.
acting
What a
like you
king.
know what's up.
Humble king.
Better than the CDC. All I do is I watch the news once every 2 weeks. I'm like, mask or no mask?
Listen to the
No mask,
experts. What the
I don't give a
fuck?
about
Quit listening to Alex Jones.
But even they say you shouldn't wear a mask unless you're.
No, they don't. It's not true.
Yeah, but they didn't say that initially. They didn't say it initially.
No, they didn't.
They did, and then it gradually, and then wait, and then everybody wore the fucking masks. This is like rollerblading. Everybody fucking rollerbladed, and then there was that one fucking homophobic joke, and then everybody acted like they never did it.
It's like
And then
rollerblading.
100 million fucking rollerbladers
King.
were thrown into the fucking ocean. We all wore masks, and
I
then
never
all of a sudden,
rollerbladed.
people are fucking sitting there. What? You don't have the body type for it, dude. Your fucking knuckles would scrape on the ground.
Cheese.
2 inches.
What a king. God damn it. I love Bill Burr. Speaking
I
truth.
just love how wearing a mask became like this fucking like soft thing that you were doing. Like
Look at my mask tan lines here.
courteous. Why is it
I'm not too tough to fucking save lives.
First of all, it's
Oh
not.
God, you're so tough with your fucking open nose and throat. Gee, Joe, and your 5 o'clock shadow. This is a man right here. Man doesn't wear.
Oh, so isn't that a perfect segue into what you're talking about? Oh, dude, couldn't happen to me. I'm Joe Rogan. I have too good of an immune system. And this is how many days ago? This is 6 days ago. Perfect
Hello,
segue.
friends. So we have a situation. Young Jamie Vernon tested positive today for COVID-19. I tested negative. The rest of the staff tested negative. But Jamie
Staff?
tested positive. He thought
The fuck?
maybe he had a sinus infection or allergies, but he has COVID. We were off last week. The episodes that aired, we had previously recorded. So I
The
haven't
Kanye
seen
app.
Jamie in about 9 days.
Oh, here come the
Somewhere
excuses.
around
He is like a Joe
Thursday, this
McCarthy
past
naming names.
Thursday, He felt like shit for a day and then started feeling better on Friday. And by Saturday, he was mostly over it. Today, he says he feels
I bet Joe Rogan is going to wear a mask now.
it's COVID. So we canceled all the shows.
All these people like Trump who insist on not wearing a mask. What the fuck do you think is going to happen? Bolsonaro too. What the fuck do you think happens if you don't wear a mask and you go in public? This is what happens. This is what happens. And you risk giving it to people who might be more vulnerable and don't take as many vitamins as you, Joe.
Happy he has a mild case, but we canceled all the shows. I'm keeping away from everybody and testing myself and testing the staff every day. Until,
Now it's suddenly real, huh?
There's nothing we could do, so we're canceling.
Nothing we could do, guys. Unavoidable.
This week, and I won't know.
Didn't learn
when
shit.
We will do them again until we get a clear from the doctor. I think it has to be.
Oh, now we're listening to doctors,
10
huh?
days
I thought they were
and
tough.
3 negative test results in a row. So that takes us deep into next week. I don't know what we're going to do. We may do some.
I don't know what
shows
culture's going to do without
We
him.
may do some shows with.
Where are all the former guys who were athletes in high school and became potheads going to start getting their cultural arguments? They're going to be walking through the streets with their mouths up waiting to catch Ronies.
Which I really don't want to do, but we'll figure it out. And I'm happy that Jamie has a mild case. I'm happy that he's feeling better, but obviously this is a fucked up situation. My apologies to all the guests. My apologies to all of you. It's out of my hands, obviously.
I don't accept your apology, Joe. You're a moron. Get with the fuck. Here, let me give you an example of Joe Rogan being a complete fucking moron. Here is Joe Rogan saying Che Guevara is a mass murderer.
The Joe Rogan experience.
Let's just break this down
What
here.
the fuck happened with Che Guevara? How did Che...
So Che Guevara was a communist revolutionary from South America who's most known for his part in the Cuban Revolution. He, at one point, when it was the 14th of July movement before they took over the government, he found that one of them was an informant for the main government that was still in charge, whose name is currently, is it Batista? I think it is Batista. Yeah, he was working for Batista, who was the dictator before the Cuban Revolution. So they found an informant. Nobody else wanted to kill him. Che took the initiative and killed him. He talked about it in his diary. I've read, a lot of stuff on Che Guevara myself. I read the Motorcycle Diaries, which is his trip around South America, which radicalized him and showed him the suffering of the once great Inca people. So with that in mind, let's listen to Joe Rogan's opinion on Che Guevara, who, by the way, I'll pull up the wiki after this to disprove what he's saying.
Guevara all of a sudden emerge as this like leftist political icon.
He's a
but in
pure
this
god.
Really weird, sort of clueless way. Like they really didn't
He
understand.
is
his
a
background,
controversial
really
mixed
didn't
figure,
understand who
but
he was and what he had done and the atrocities that he had committed. These
atrocities.
fucking T-shirts that all these dopey liberal
I won't
kids.
put those fucking things
It's
on.
fucking crazy. If you
Oh,
find out
wow,
who that
Cubans
guy
in
is,
America,
you're
I bet, do
wearing
not
a
like them.
mass murderer's T-shirt.
What does Joey Diaz
He was a
think?
fucking
Reactionary
ruthless
Cuban
cunt.
opinion. Here we go.
And these people are wearing this shirt as if he symbolizes like liberty or
He
freedom
does.
from a
So, here, I'll let the clip
government or something
finish.
like that. But it was a long period of time where you didn't have any Che Guevara. There was no discussion of it, and that it seemed like somewhere in the 2000s.
Probably during Reagan.
It picked up. Am I right about that?
Something like that, yeah. Hey, let me tell you something. It was so personal for a while. Like, I have Argentinian friends.
This is such nonsense.
There was a rift between Argentinians and Cubans. Like, that's how personal the
Che
Cubans
is
took.
Argentinian.
Yeah.
Che is Argentinian.
Right.
Like, there was a rift. Like,
So Joey Diaz with this fucking straight face to over 1.8, almost 2 million people said, "Oh, dude, the Cubans fucking hate the Argentinians and the Cubans fucking hated each other for a while, dude. I'll tell you what." And Joe Rogan with a completely straight face.
Him.
because of him, like
Wow.
Cubans, the fuck out of here.
Really?
Talking that.
Right. So Cubans, he's saying Cubans hate Fidel Castro.
Castellano, they talk.
How do they talk?
They talk las cosas de la vida.
They do it the lift. Como
They
estás?
do the lift,
Oh, yeah,
people
like a
from
beef
Spain.
cut.
Like Spain.
Yeah.
And
What?
Cubans would go
Yeah.
off in Union City if you were Argentinian.
Really?
That's how deep the hatred ran.
Cuban, Spanish.
How did the
Cubans hate Che Guevara. And Joe Rogan said he is a mass murderer.
thing? Where'd that come from?
Like if a Cuban was considered one old man, and I went there one, at 5, you ain't gonna.
Against, I'm sure as well,
Yes.
right?
So I went over there one time. My mom took me to meet my.
I personally find Joey Diaz to be a complete fucking liar. It's like half the shit that he's like, dude, and then I did this. I was selling fucking Whitney Houston. I don't buy any of it. I think he's a fucking bold-faced lying piece of shit. So, as for the charge that he was a mass murderer. Where was it? Oh, here we go. So this is John Lee Anderson, author of Che Guevara, Revolutionary Life. So this is kind of the authoritative source on Che Guevara. I have yet to find a single credible source pointing to a case where Che executed an innocent. So a single innocent people. So a mass murder versus not even killing one person. One innocent person, sorry. Let me be specific. Those persons executed by Guevara or on his orders were condemned for the usual crimes punishable by death at times of war and its aftermath: desertion, treason, or crimes such as rape, torture, or murder. Not exactly the innocent population that Joe Rogan would like to have you believe. I should add that my research spanned 5 years and included anti-Cuban exiles among the Cuban-American exile community in Miami and elsewhere. So these are the people who have the most reason to hate Che Guevara, who have been kicked out of their own country by the war. So there's one charge that is absolute dog shit. That is the title of this video. That is nonsense. The fact that he was a communist, same guy who was... yeah, really. Thank you, sir. A bunch of Batista who is... See, everybody's has a lot of different arguments, but the point is, it's just factually incorrect. Let's go to his legacy. Legacy. Guevara's life and legacy remain contentious, but what do the Cuban people think? Guevara, the perceived contradictions around his ethos at various points in his life have created a complex character of duality, one who is able to wield the pen and submachine gun with equal skill. While prophesizing the most important revolutionary ambition was to see a man liberated from his alienation. Guevara's paradoxically standing in... a secular humanist and a sympathetic practitioner of medicine who did not hesitate to shoot his enemies. A celebrated internationalist leader who advocated violence. So, one of the things that I read from Che Guevara that I thought was so deep and soulful was when he went to the Inca people, he was a doctor. He was training to be a doctor at this point. And the grandmother of the village was brought out to see Che Guevara because they could not afford to send her to a real doctor, and she had just been getting sicker and sicker. And he made the observation. Let me see if I could find it. I'm probably not going to be able to find it. I don't think I can find it, but basically where he said, in conditions this awful, ordinarily the people that you'd look to take care of your loved ones the most, the mothers, the daughters, it's almost like they want to continue on with life. And the person who's sick in a condition this awful, where there's no hope to help them or that they can assist in life in any way, he said becomes something of a negative integer on life, where people almost start treating them like they're weaker. Like there's almost becomes a stigma in these awful circumstances against the weaker people, which is horrible. That the weakest people in the horriblest circumstances almost get alienated from their own community. I thought it was a very wise quote. It's something that I think about often. But Joe Rogan thinks he's a mass murderer, and that clearly I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about because Che Guevara was so fucking awful. How could you wear a shirt? I got Kobe Bryant on my shirt. Next, you're going to tell me that that's a mass murder.